Right. Hello and welcome, watchers and listeners. This is the summer mashup episode between the 1912 Exiles and the Amber Army. I'm Ed. For those of you who don't know me, I am one of the regular contributors to the 1912 Exiles, and I'm joined by the man, the legend, Chris Silverthorne, aka Taff from the Amber Army. How you doing?
Oh, very good. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for having us. This is nice to be back together. I mean, it's not the first time that the two big fan channels have collaborated. I was thinking back very early on, I think, in the life of the 1912 Exiles, you and Reese used to have the occasional chat long before I was involved. So there has been some collaboration before, but not for a little while.
No, I mean, obviously Reese had just started. A big fan of the content when he was first putting it out, and what we wanted to do was give an additional platform for him to try and grow the pod, and he managed to do that pretty quickly, to be fair, and it's turned into what it's turned into today, and it's fantastic, always fantastic listening, and I'm a big fan myself.
Yeah, and that goes the other way as well. You know, we're big fans of what you do, and it's always good to hear your kind of raw opinions on stuff. So yeah, it's good to be having a chat. This kind of came about because we've got a bit of a gap in our summer schedule. I know you've been churning stuff out regularly, but we thought, well, maybe let's come together and see if we can just have a chinwag about some of the things that have been going on recently. So for those of you watching in glorious Technicolor, here is what we're going to try and get through, and we set ourselves the ambition of doing this in half an hour. So we're going to talk about some of the insights that we've had from pre-season games. We're going to talk about where we think there might be gaps in the squad with an eye to future transfers. We're going to talk about some of the rumours about potential new managers or head coaches. We might talk about some of the rumours about investment, and we might look ahead and try and give some of our expectations for the season ahead. So you start us off, Chris. Where do you want to start with that, and where should we go?
Well, I think the start would be the start of the pre-season, and when obviously we went down to Bristol. Lovely day out that was, to be fair. Nice little grind, sort of nostalgic, where old sort of non-league days were. The kind of ground we were used to going to before we hit the heights of the EFL. So yeah, it was, like I say, a lovely day out. It was a very one-sided game. What I liked is how professional we were. How we obviously played on the front foot, and they didn't get a sniff, and kind of felt bad for them, because you want it to be a bit of a show for their home support. But no, I just like our professionalism, our work rate, our hunger to win the game when it was only our first pre-season. So yeah, all in all, it was a great day. I mean, I've only seen 2 of the pre-season games. There's only that one in Newport City so far. Some of you might know my wife runs a small business with scented products, and she hooks herself onto markets, the summertime being like a peak time for those markets to happen. So some of my Saturdays have been taken up with that. So I've missed the Gloucester game, and I've missed the one in Bath. But from the games I've seen so far, albeit relatively weaker, much weaker opposition, I've been impressed with mainly it's the work rate and the professionalism. And I can only imagine that's carried over into Gloucester and into Bath. But I'll be going there Tuesday. First, I believe our first friendly match at Rodney Parade since Aston Villa and Jack Grealish came to town.
Yeah. Yeah, it's exciting times. I mean, yeah, like you, I mean, the only one I've seen actually was the first one at Bristol Manor Farm. Like you, I thought, yeah, smashing little ground, beautiful, pretty little sort of town, well, suburb, I suppose, that it was in. The thing I really liked with that one, so we played 3 lots of 30 minutes effectively, with lots of kind of substitutions. And for those of you who weren't there, next to the pitch was a tiny little sort of 3G pitch that lots of kids were kicking a ball on beforehand. And it was funny, the game started, and the Newport County lot kind of kicked them off, because we were using that as like a warm up and cool down pitch for the players who were either going on as subs or coming off. And I thought that was quite funny. And it feels as though that's been the approach to the pre-season games. Speaking to other people, we've treated it as 3/3 or 245 minutes, certainly for most of the early games, just to get minutes into the legs, build up fitness. Yeah. It's not been about results. It's been about just getting players up to kind of doing sustained stints. Whereas at Bath on Saturday, from what Logan said in his match report, and I saw others saying, it sounded as though we treated that as a sort of a possibles 11 starting with kind of probables coming off the bench, you know. So you had the likes of young Harrison Helpin starting the game, Harry Pugh was it in midfield. So, you know, it seemed as though that was a chance for some of the young guns to maybe impress, and then gradually we strengthened as the game went on. And that kind of feels about right, I guess, assuming, like you say, that on Tuesday night against Reading, you probably start your first 11. So that might be, do you think, the first chance we get to see what the favoured 11 might be?
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult without a manager at the moment to know exactly how we're going to play, because if a new manager comes in, he's obviously going to put his own stamp on the style of play. But I mean, I'd like to think that if a new manager is going to come, they're going to keep the current backroom staff and keep moving forward what we've been working on so far in the preseason, because what we don't need is evolution at this particular point, you know, with the season looming, you know, it's just around the corner more or less. But the one thing I've noticed, and the previous two pre-seasons, I just felt that the standard of our football was poor. So I feel that we'll be using them as training games, we'll be using them as fitness games purely, or were we actually trying to play some football and the players just weren't good enough to play the brand of football we were trying? From the reports I've got from the two that I've missed and from the games that I've seen, the football has actually been a lot easier on the eye. One of the points I wanted to make is that, you know,
do you think that's partly, I agree with you from, again, the snippets that I've seen. Do you think that's partly, though, because of the quality of the opposition we've been playing and the fact that we're playing on quite nice pitches because it's summer and they've had lots of TLC, whereas once we get into, you know, twice a week fourth division football and it's October and it's Tuesday night, it's pissing with rain, and you know, and we're up against a better standard, do you think some of those principles will go out the window? I mean, my sense at the moment is we're trying to have kind of Jardim and Hughes style better possession football, but with a more physical edge, which is where I think we should be. But I don't know whether that will stand contact with reality once we're playing, you know, your Rochdales, your Yorks, etc.
So I mean, if you rewind to last season, we played Indy. I don't recall what the score was, but it was a pretty close game. I can't remember what the score was, but it was quite close in comparison to Newport City, which was just a complete and utter walkover, and Newport City being in a higher division than Indy. So I don't know if you can really read too much into that, but I just feel that you know, that there's just more of an edge, you know, more of a cutting edge to to the way that we're trying to play. They're obviously doing certain things in training that are going to set us up. It's as if we're carrying on the Fuchs style. Obviously, he's obviously left some kind of legacy. He's obviously left some kind of instruction with Mark Smith, who was his number 2, and Chris Todd, who was obviously on his coaching staff. I'd like to feel that they're continuing that, and if a new manager does come in, it's going to be on the basis that, look, you know, this is the club ethos of football. You know, this is what we want. This is our style of football now. You know, obviously we always knew of the Swansea way when it came to Swansea with Hugh Jenkins. Is this the dawn of the Newport way? And, you know, we're sort of going back to some of our roots, you know, that more physical brand of football, that, you know, higher work rate, you know, the eagerness to win the ball back, the eagerness to get the ball forward and utilise our danger players. And I feel like we have done that in the 2 games that I've seen, and, you know, it was carrying on with the way that we were playing under Fuchs towards the end of the season in the games that ultimately kept us up.
And I think you're right about that important point of evolution rather than revolution after last season. I mean, it feels as though, again, from what I've seen and what I've heard, we're trying to stick with the sort of 4-2-3-1 that was Fuchs's favoured formation. I should imagine that's what we're going to try and start the season with as things stand. And I guess, you know, to maybe look ahead a bit to what we said we're going to talk about in terms of manager, that's the thing that's in my mind is we went into the start of the summer thinking, well, we're going to have Fuchs, we're going to continue from what we had last season. Obviously, Fuchs then left. Chris Todd is there as a kind of interim manager, and we'll come on to that in a sec. I mean, for me, and this is a personal view, I think there's a lot to be said for trying to have that continuity from last season. You know, Todd and the backroom staff that we've got, they know the players who were there last season. They know why we recruited the players who we recruited. They know the system that we were expecting to play. And I think there's quite a good logic for sticking with that, you know, at least for the first 2, 3, 4 months of the season, so that, because the alternative is to appoint a new manager, you throw things up in the air, you know, potentially that person wants to bring in their own backroom staff, they might have a different way of playing, they might want different players, and then whatever happens, you're going to have change, and, you know, that might be instant success, but more likely it will take a bit of time to bed in at best, and then you don't quite know where you are. So my personal opinion is I would prefer us to stick with Chris Todd and hope that that continuity delivers some sort of stability that we can then build on, rather than throwing things up. But I mean, where are you on that? Do you A, want that to happen, and B, do you think that is what will happen?
It does kind of feel like deja vu with 2 seasons ago, doesn't it? You know, I mean, obviously Graham Coughlin left suddenly, in the same way that Fuchs has just left. Jardine was brought in as a first team coach, but then ended up getting the manager's job. I don't know if there was a plan A and that fell through, and then Jardine was the plan B. I don't know if there's a plan A right now with Chris Todd to be the plan B, or is Chris Todd the plan A? But then if there are big name managers out there that are throwing their applications in, is it going to be a manager with a name that you look at it and think, well, we can't really turn them away, because they would be an absolute coup? But no, I think there's value to both. You know, I think there's definitely value to keeping that continuity and keeping that because that's something that we've lacked over the last few years. I mean, back when we had that continuity under Coughlin, you know, we were competitive in the league. We were, you know, we got Man United in the cup. I mean, you know, yeah, and it just reminds us of the last time before that we had continuity under Flynn, when we were making playoff finals and going on numerous cup runs. And that's where the argument is strong for the continuity, because maybe we can push ourselves back into that kind of realm again. But at the moment, yeah, I mean, there are names being thrown around. I mean, there's 2 in particular that I've heard. This Scott Lindsay apparently had an interview with us, but it's all gone quiet. Maybe that's fallen through, I don't know. And there's obviously the rumours of Carl Robinson being at the Bath game. Now,
well, yeah, and I think that's certainly more than just rumours. In fact, a friend of the pod, Logan, who was there and sent us the match report, which you can listen to on our YouTube page. I don't know whether he took this picture or whether someone else sent it to him. I think he took it, but he certainly tweeted it with the picture of Carl Robinson, and it's definitely Carl Robinson walking along the front of the terrace. I think at full time. So there's no question. I think that Carl Robinson was at the game, but I mean, that doesn't, I think, it certainly doesn't definitely mean anything. You know, a few weeks ago, people were saying, oh, it's Kevin Nolan is the man who's coming in. Then it was Scott Lindsay. Now people are saying Carl Robinson. I mean, out of work managers go and watch a lot of games. They might be looking out for a player. They might be speaking with other people. You know, they might well be touting for jobs. That it doesn't necessarily mean that they are definitely a shoo-in. But, you know, it's not nothing that he was there. So who knows?
Being from the northwest, it's a 6-hour round trip to Bath versus Newport in a pre-season friendly. I mean, don't get me wrong, we've had some screamers of games back when, you know, the 3-3 back when we were in the conference, and that Wayne Hatswell half volley. I mean, yeah, we've had some great encounters. I wouldn't see the appeal for him unless there was some skin in the game for him to be there, you know. So
yeah, I mean, and you and I think it's fair to say, have different views on Carl Robinson, so maybe let's kind of tease that out, because, you know, there are different views amongst all the fan base about him. So I don't know. Do you want to do the case for the defence first, and then I'll do the case for the prosecution?
And the one thing that stands out, and believe it or not, there's actually when we actually beat one of his teams. It was not last season; it was the season before. The Kyle Hudlin demolition, you'd refer it to. When Colin Hudlin single-handedly beat Salford, but I thought Salford played us off the park football-wise on that night. I thought their brand of football so slick, so quick, so technical. and you could see Carl, because where I stand in the terrace is literally right there on the edge of the dugout, and you can see the manager. And sometimes some managers stand out to you with how much they get involved with what's going on in the game. And I say he was a Salford shirt and a pair of boots away from actually being on the pitch with them. I thought, for a manager, because I'm a coach myself, and there's certain traits with managers that I admire, and that eagerness to be a part of it and really shout to everybody, "You do this, you do that." It's almost like like he's at the opera and he was an orchestrator, and he was there waving his little wand.
It's funny though, because you see, people see stuff differently, because he definitely is vociferous on the touchline. But what I saw from the back of the stand, watching the same game as you, was him spending 90+ minutes berating the poor bugger of the fourth official, constantly having Robinson in his ear, giving it that, rather than necessarily encouraging or helping his players. And for me, that's one of the things that annoys me. He reminds me a bit of Warren Feeney when he managed us, who, again, like you, I would stand on the terrace and listen to him. And I think you are spending all of your time arguing with the ref, chuntering with the fourth official, having a go at the linesman, sometimes berating your players. But what you're not doing is giving them any useful advice or encouragement. You're just barking swear words at them. And I'm not sure I want a manager like that, personally.
Modern football is getting any advantage you can from the officials. If the officials are if you're gonna get on their back and they're gonna give you, it's part of what we call dark arts, and it's something that our fans have been calling for years. Ever since we've been in League Two, we've seen the dark arts used against us, and it's lost us games. Kevin Ellison, for one, was the absolute master of it, and I was so glad we actually got a couple of seasons of him playing with us, because it was one of those to have him in the tent spitting out rather than out in the tent spitting in like you always used to. But football matches are won with so fine a margin sometimes that one little thing that you say to the fourth official that may stick in his mind, and he may communicate with his referee, or I think we're giving this Salford team a bit of a hard time on this. You might want to try and dial it back with the home support, and he may give a questionable direct free kick outside the area at 2-1, which they could score from to make it 2-2, which makes a completely different game. Like I say, these fine margins, these psychological things as well. You've got to play to every advantage that you can get. And like I say, again, like Kevin Ellison, out of the tent, inside the tent, spitting out. Carl Robinson is certainly someone who you definitely like inside the tent, spitting out. So,
well, he certainly does his fair share of spitting. And if I can just find it, last season when we played away at Salford, there was a great clip, which I cannot believe that Salford's social media team put up online, of Carl Robinson's halftime speech to his players. So I'm going to play this now. I've got the clip here. I'll play it in. There is some bad language, so if you're watching or listening with small children, you might want to just pause and come back to it later on. So at this moment, Carl Robinson's team is 1-0 down to Newport County, and this is what he said to them at half-time.
Shows you, when you fucking don't do your jobs, look what fucking happens! You've got 50 minutes to go through a fucking gear like you haven't fucking done all year. I'm telling you, I'm demanding more. It will come if you believe. Do not go out there fucking sloppy.
So yeah, that was Carl Robinson at half-time, and within, I think, 10 minutes of that, they were 3-0 down. Clearly it didn't work.
It wasn't effective, no. But I could imagine that being effective on other times,
Yeah, I have two worries or concerns or objections, however you want to phrase it, about Carl Robinson. So one is this point that I think he rants and raves too much, and used judiciously, I'm not against that. I think I remember Flynn talking in an interview about, because he could be a bit of a ranting and raving manager, but there was one game, I can't remember who the opponent was, when we were losing, and him and Hatswell were walking down to go in the dressing room, and Hatswell said, "What are you going to say to them at halftime?" He said, "I'm not going to say anything. You're going to say something," because his theory was that if Wayne Hatswell, who was usually the calmer of the two and more pally with the players, if he went in and gave them a bollocking, they'd sit up and listen. And he did, and it turned the game around. So when you use that power judiciously, I think it does have an impact. My issue with Carl Robinson is I don't think he has an off switch. I think he just does that the whole time, and that's his kind of default setting. And and it's a personal thing. If I had a line manager who came in and spoke to people like Carl Robinson in that clip, firstly, I don't think they'd survive the morning, but also even if they did, I think people would kind of walk out and switch off, because I'm not sure that is the most effective strategy with the kind of players that you have now. It might have been 20, 30 years ago. I'm not sure it's the right approach. So that's my one objection. I mean, my other concern, and it's more of a structural one, is if you look at where Carl Robinson has done well. So he got franchise promoted. He got Oxford to 2 playoff campaigns. I think one they got knocked out in the semi-final of the playoffs, and the other one they lost at Wembley, and he got Salford to the playoffs. But in all of those 3, he had backing to buy players, to a greater or lesser extent. And I think he is the sort of manager who, if he has a problem, his solution is to go out and buy someone, usually a winger, from what I can remember of his time at Oxford. And that's not a luxury that we have. We need to very much have a manager who can sift through the bargain bin, and I'm not persuaded that he's got that in his locker. But maybe, I don't know, you look like you're about to argue.
So the thing is, obviously, we know that side of Carl Robinson, and if he is considering taking the job of this, if he is going to be an HSR manager, obviously with all that wealth comes expectation. So is he going to be in a job where he knows that the expectation of him isn't going to be anywhere to the to the level of expectation at an MK Dons or a Salford, where they're throwing money at it to get their success? With us, we don't have the money to throw at it. And besides, when you're given that money, you literally piece together, the different bits of the puzzle with the best pieces you can find. Where a project like ours is more like a building project, is more like little bits at a time. I mean, you go through one season, you finish mid-table, you identify, right, that our biggest weakness was our defence because we conceded X amount of goals. So our transfer focus is now defence. And then it slowly builds and builds and builds. I mean, longevity is one of the big points of it. If we are going to appoint another manager, we need someone who's going to be there for the long run. And we thought we had that with Fuchs, with the long-term contract that he supposedly signed. So would he be tempted away for a bigger wage again? That would be the one thing against Carl Robinson that I would have. I understand your concerns fully as well, and I think they are concerns. But for me personally, I mean, I come from a military background. I was in the Air Force, and I've had fine with being shouted at. I've had my fair share of bollockings in my time. I wasn't the most model of airman, should we say, at the best of times. So I've had my fair share of bollockings, and to be fair, sometimes that rocket, I know Flinny used to use the word rocket, or the hairdryer, should we say, the old Ferguson hairdryer. Sometimes that can be effective, but I understand what you mean, the modern day footballer. I think in an age where, you consider people's feelings, you consider people's mental health, and you feel that an arm around the shoulder is a more effective thing. Maybe one-on-one, he could be that like that, but we don't really know. I've never really spoken to anybody that's ever played under him before to know whether as a one-on-one, he's an arm around the shoulder type, or collectively as a group, he's that type that we saw in that clip, of course. So I don't know. I suppose he's a big name. He's been relied upon with big clubs to do big things. Maybe if he is going to take the job with this, he's looking at a different career path for himself and looking at a different project that he feels he's up to. But we'll have to wait and see if he's even appointed in the first place.
We will, but I guess to finish on a point of agreement, we cannot carry on being a club that changes manager twice a season. Like you say, that's not sustainable, and it's not going to lead us to get out of the kind of rut that we've been in over the last 3 seasons. So, even from my point of view of being skeptical, if we were to bring in someone like that, we've got to kind of then back them, and we've got to stick with them and hope that plan comes to fruition. Right, we said we were going to give ourselves half an hour. We're at 25 minutes, and we've done 2 things off our list. So, what do you want to do next, Chris?
Well, let's go for the squad gaps, because I can go through that relatively quickly.
Go for
so
it.
you can see with Jameson gone, there'll be some free wages to piece another bit of the puzzle for us. I think if we're going with a 4-3-3, I feel that we're 3 wingers short, unless Kieran Evans is going to be utilised as a winger. We need some cover at left back. I think we need 1 more centre back, unless Harrison Halpin is going to fill in for the season, which it could be a possibility with the way he's been performing. The good old-fashioned midfield bastard. We didn't sign Sven Sprangler. We have to find a new one. And as much as Cameron Evans can be that, we need a permanent midfield bastard. Because Cameron Evans is so versatile, there's going to be times he may have to be used elsewhere. But him and Sprangler played well together, so why not put another one in there? But then, if Kieran Evans is going to be utilised as a winger, we would need somebody else to cover in the midfield as well. So a CDM, a CM, 3 wingers, unless Kieran Evans is going to be used there, just the 2, and we do need some cover at left back. Thankfully, we've still got 5 loan players remaining to go for.
And I think the loanees are going to be the critical ones. I'm broadly on the same page. So I think left back cover is really important. I mean, I really hope this is the season where Tom Davies stays fit. I think he should be and can be a successful 4th division fullback. I think he probably has a higher ceiling than maybe we've realised yet. I think the injury last season didn't help him. So I really hope he gets a good run, but we're going to need someone to cover for him. I think we're probably all right at centre back if you go on the basis that Harrison Halpin looks like he could step up, and I think with the budget we've got, we need to maybe give some of those young players the opportunity to show what they can do. So possibly we're all right there. We definitely do need that midfield bastard. I mean, I know we've got Keenan Patton. I gather Harry Pugh is possibly someone who can kind of do that role, but young midfield bastards is, they tend to come to it later in life, so they're both options. But I think one thing we saw last season, Sprangler was the one who kind of unlocked it by giving us that physicality, and I'm not quite sure we're yet there. So I think for me that's the most important one. Wingers, I think is the other area, especially if we're playing a 4-2-3-1 where we need to have players who can come in off the flanks and support the striker. I think the 3 strikers we've got, Doige, Shaq, and who am I missing?
Kroll.
Kroll's injured, but who's there's
Garner.
Garner, Garner. I mean, it seems to have forced himself back into it, and good for him. So we've got 4 strikers, one of whom is long-term injured, but I think that's probably sufficient. But we do need the options off the flank. So I think that's the thing that we kind of need to address. I mean, it sounds as though Moses Alexander-Walker may have done his cause a bit of a favour on Saturday, but I mean, I don't know where you are on him. I think he's now at kind of shit or get off the pot time, really, isn't he?
Yeah, I think I'd like to see him on Tuesday. If I get to see him on Tuesday, I'll make my mind up on whether I think he's worthy of figuring in the first team plans for the season. Yeah. But I can't feel that there may be another loan for him before he's quite ready. Because I don't believe even he went out on loan last season, and I don't believe he uprooted any trees while he was there. So
the one thing in his favour,
I really hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, the one thing that's in his favour, I gather he has sort of beefed up a little bit physically, so that's a good start. I mean, that's always the thing that you need to see those young players doing. So it's okay, good. So it sounds like we're sort of on the same page with that, and we can see what loans come in. I mean, I think we will go quite late with some of the loans. I think the lesson we've learned from last season is if we hang on, wait to see who's surplus to requirements at other clubs, like we did with Biggins and Sprangler, we might end up getting players who have a little bit more experience and a little bit more quality than if we go early and get other sides academy graduates who are doing their first loan. I mean, I'm sure we'll get 1 or 2 of those as well. But I suspect we will, particularly for that kind of midfield bastard, that's where we'll say, we'll hang on, we'll maybe push the boat out budget-wise and get that one right. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So we've got 2 more items of business, Chris. Should we do investment rumours? This seems to have gone quiet, unless you know something I don't.
Oh, it has gone very quiet on that. No, well, obviously we heard about Nicholas Bedis and his. We've heard of consortiums from Dubai. We've heard of consortiums from the United States and the Miami training camp and everything like that. I mean, there's been some crazy rumours. The only thing that seemed to have
in the end, they did go to Miami. They went to Minehead, didn't they?
Oh, I know what I'd rather go, to be honest with you. But well,
no comment.
Yeah, but no, I mean, I heard rumours of apparently a County fan picking up someone from Dubai. From the airport, taking them to Dragon Park, saying they were trying to conclude a deal to buy Newport County, and they got 2 weeks to do it, and nothing came of that either. I mean, investment's in football is always going to take time, because you've got to pass EFL checks and everything like that. We don't know what's going on in the background. We know Hugh Jenkins is open to it, whether he's selling his stake, but they got to buy out his debt as well to do so. But then obviously we've got 48% sitting with the Supporters Trust and legacy shareholders from 1989. Personally, I think that is the area that we need to be. You've probably seen on my videos, I've mentioned it many times. It's time for the trust, I believe, to sell up, because 100k a year, but having a say on the board for the fans. I mean, is it worth 100k a year when we could sell up and have somebody else who could contribute far more, not just financially, but with business acumen that can help build us commercially, which for me, I think has got to be a priority, because that's where we're falling down at the moment. I mean, we got the support that should put us on financially. We should be mid-table easily based on our support, because everybody buys the kits. We got over 2,000 season ticket holders, which is a lot more than some of the clubs in our division, but we seem to be one of the lowest for income. Not having a stadium is a big thing, but if we can find someone who knows how to maximise our commercial opportunities, I think that's where we need to be looking for our investment. An initial injection of cash, of course, just to push things along, but you can't just keep injecting cash. You've got to find some degree of self-sustainability, and whoever can come in and help with that side of it, that's where we need to be looking on that investment.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that struck me, particularly after the Nick Bedis stuff, is the people who are really likely to come in and invest in your football club are probably not going to be trying to get their names in the paper and talking about just how rich they are. The people who are really rich don't need to go on about how rich they are. The people who are really interested in concluding a deal don't want to see that in the papers. The people who are most likely to be having quiet discussions with Mr. Jenkins will be doing so through quiet discussions with Mr. Jenkins. It's not going to be getting leaked to newspapers. And so in that sense, I think we just need to be a bit skeptical of names that we maybe see bandied around. And I think maybe there was a lesson there. And by the same token, if and when we do hear from some concrete news of someone coming in, the people who we most need to come in and invest some money, whether they're buying shares off Hugh Jenkins or off the trust or whatever, are going to be the people who put money into some of the boring stuff, into buying us a training ground of our own, stuff like that. It's not going to be people who come in and say, we're going to match the likes of Salford in this league by spending $8,000 a week on a striker. That actually is not, it will help us in the short term, but the people we need are the ones who are going to come in and say, we're going to invest X million pounds into a training centre or land to build a training centre on. That's the stuff that ultimately in 10 years, 20 years time, we will look back and say that really shaped how Newport County evolved into a professional club. So I think those are maybe the things that we need to think about. I know it sounds like eat your peas rather than let's stuff our face with Christmas cake, but I think we maybe just need to have that in mind.
Eating your peas is where you get the minerals that become big and strong. That's what my parents always taught me, mate.
So I'm told. I never ate mine. I was too busy stuffing myself with birthday cake. But
Oh, you wouldn't. But looking at the two of us, you wouldn't think that that's the other way around, would you? Honestly. But to be fair, you're absolutely bang on there, because assets, I mean, at the moment, Newport County doesn't really have any value. All we've got to our name is our Football League status, which is why staying up was so crucial to us. We don't have a stadium like other clubs. We don't have a training ground or an academy base. We don't have any of it. When we own it, that is fixed against the football club, the business of Newport County, and that puts value on us. At the moment, all we've got is, say, a bunch of players, Football League status, and a chairman who's, well, the last we heard was £3 million deep with us. And it doesn't look too pretty. So, yeah, you're absolutely bang on with that.
What a moment that is to bring us on to our final item then. So,
realistic
season expectations. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I think, if we're being realistic, really realistic, we're probably in for a season where we are going to be lingering around, the bottom 10 teams. If that is going to be the case, as long as we're the top part of those bottom 10 teams, and always a nice little gap away from relegation, and as long as we can see a competitiveness from the players, as long as we can see that we're capable of winning games, so we actually go to the games confident. The amount of times I'd go to the Dodger before the game and I talk to people, they were like, "Oh, we're going to lose today. Oh, I'm not confident today," and I couldn't disagree with them. But to go there and think, "Oh, I fancy us today," really feel excited for the game. Yeah, I miss having that, and we didn't have that until towards the end of last season. We didn't have it at any point during. I think the little spell where we'd beaten Cardiff and Accrington and Harrogate, we thought, here we go, we're going to kick on. Didn't happen. But then Fuchs ball allowed us to kick on and start feeling confident again, which is why it's a disappointment where he's gone. But if we can start strong, or at least look competitive when we start, so we have that bit of confidence, it'll just be a nicer season for us. And I think realistically, that's what we got hope for. Nothing wrong with hoping for a cup run. More good away days, because we don't seem to have many of them. Barrow.
We didn't have many good home days. I was thinking back earlier to the fact that, last year we went from March through to December without winning a home game. In retrospect, how did we not all have a kind of collective nervous breakdown? That was just the most miserable start to the season, particularly for those of us who mostly, I mostly go to home games, and trying to turn up every week and find something to pin your hopes on when you've not won a game since before the clocks went forward. Yeah. It was grim. So we need to get some home wins early on, just to kind of reassure everyone. I think is quite big. I'm with you. I think we should be aiming to be at the top half of the bottom third, if you know what I mean. So somewhere, kind of 16th to 19th is not ideal, but if we were to kind of get past that 50-point mark early and be able to give ourselves some breathing space, have the comfort that Nelson Jardim used to talk about, like say, maybe have a cup run along the way, help get our mojo back. I think it's and there's no specific target in mind for that, but we'll know if it's happened, right? If we can get a few early wins, if we can upset the apple cart in a few games, if we can have a little mini cup run, if we can win some of those big set piece ones, Boxing Day, New Year's Day, just to start and get a bit of swagger around the place.
Yeah, of course. Like I say, I've got many really, really good experiences with Newport County on away days, and away days is where it matters, because when you play badly on an away day, you've got the drive home to think about it. When you're at home, the drive home is a quick 5 minutes at Corporate Road for me. And I can go home, put on Netflix, and then Newport County goes to the back of my mind now because I'm watching Suits or something. But no, a couple of good away days. Go there, with a little bit of pride, a little bit of we're coming here. We're going to give you a good game, and be confident in saying that. Pride. That Newport pride again. Just feeling pride of your football club again. I think that's where I think ultimately we all as fans want to sit when the season, when we get into the deep cold season and we're freezing our nuts off on the terrace, and what are we doing here? The last 2 seasons, that's what it was. But no, I'm feeling quietly optimistic with the summer that we're having, and if the recruitment of the manager is correct, whether it's Todd, whether it's Robinson, or somebody completely out of left field, yeah, as long as we can go into it and feel proud of our football club again, that's where I want to be at.
Lovely. Well, let's finish on that high note then.
Yeah.
This has been great, Chris. We should do this again sometime.
I definitely agree with that, and I'll come back anytime. And say, look, the listeners got 10 extra minutes as well. You can't say bonus.
Well, listen, thank you everyone who has listened or watched for this. Do leave your comments and everything, and we will doubtless on the 9012 Exiles and on the Amber Army channels be back before too long. But Chris, thank you very much for your time.
Oh, and thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And we will catch up with you all again soon.